The story starts with the revelation that Eddie Brock, who is also the bodily host of the Venom symbiote, has somehow gone down with cancer. And to be honest, it's no surprise, having been infected by the symbiote for goodness knows how long. He only has a few days to depart this life, and the first thing he tries to do is get rid of the Venom side of him. But it turns out the symbiote refuses to let him be. Physically, Venom is not there anymore, but he still finds a way to haunt Eddie Brock and to inhabit his mind. At this point, it tempts him to exact his revenge on Spider-Man, hence the subtitle, and to be sure, it might as well be Eddie's last action while still alive. And this cold dish to which Venom and Eddie are preparing involves Aunt May, of all people. She is in critical condition in a hospital after a botched attempt on Peter Parker's life. Before now, Peter had revealed his true identity as Spider-Man and has been subsequently attacked. But Aunt May was in the crossfire and ended up unconscious in a hospital. So Venom is urging Eddie to hurt Peter by messing with Aunt May's life support machine in such a way that Peter will never know what hit him. Eddie is on the roof of the hospital where he's supposed to be receiving treatment for his cancer. And of course, he is in a conversation with the Venom side of him. They both reflect on the good old days and how they once owned the Knights of New York. Venom encourages Eddie that in fact they still do, and starting from tonight, they'll certainly get their groove back. Then he tells Eddie to get back inside his room and lay in wait for Nurse Sims. He is supposed to kill her as practice for when he has to kill Aunt May. Nurse Sims comes into the room with Eddie's round of medication, but he's not on his bed. He is behind her and orders her to put down the tray. She replies to him respectfully by saying his full name and begging him to spare her life, except he doesn't want to be addressed in that way. Before she can react, Eddie cuts her up with a scalpel lying around in his room. A nurse thinks she heard someone scream, but there's a cleaner in the lobby using an automatic floor scrubber that drowns out the noise. Nurse Sims has been diced all over, and there is some blood on the floor. The adrenaline courses through Eddie, and he's not sure if he did the right thing. As usual, Venom is figuratively on his shoulders, telling him that the nurse deserved her death for bothering him all the time with her routine checks. Eddie also tries to signal that killing Aunt May might be more complicated than they anticipated. Again, Venom goes on about Aunt May being responsible for raising someone, namely Peter Parker, who would turn out to be his arch-enemy. Meanwhile, Peter is by Aunt May's bedside trying to console himself that he could actually save her. At that instance, he is a fugitive from the law, so he can't maneuver too much, so he has enlisted the help of a clairvoyant named Madame Webb. At that very instant, they are all gathered downstairs at the lounge behind the hospital chapel to perform what is known as a seance, or a ritual. Another ally of Spider-Man named Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, is set up just outside the door as a guard. You can guess this is strictly off the books and was probably a last resort. Peter is so desperate to save Aunt May that he has gone to the darker side. While in Aunt May's room, he acknowledges that she would not have approved of this move. Then he promptly excuses himself and heads downstairs where the seance is supposed to take place. Aunt May's room would have been too small to take all the participants, so the basement room would have to do. Peter gets there and meets up with MJ and her aunt Anna Watson, who will both join the circle. All three hold hands in a chain with Madame Webb as they try to picture a good memory of Aunt May. It turns out, Peter is the first to latch on to a memory of Aunt May. He pictures the night they received the sad news that his Uncle Ben had died. In the vision, there are police cars everywhere, and he sees Aunt May and a much younger version of himself hugging it out and shedding tears of grief. As Peter looks on, Aunt May calls for his attention. She is standing behind him and he begs her to come back to life, but she declines and says it was her time to go anyway. He says the bullet was meant for him, but she disagrees and says if the places were switched as he says, then she would be the one mourning him in her old age, when she was supposed to be on her way out instead. By now, Eddie has gotten to Aunt May's hospital room and is standing over her comatose body, whereas Peter and his friends are busy downstairs trying to reignite Aunt May's consciousness. And they, or rather Peter, still has a psychic connection with her. He's begging her to come back with him, but instead, she tells him to get on with his life and to get married and have kids and grow old with his wife like Uncle Ben and her. Then, she starts to walk away from him. He goes after her, but she walks into some dimensional door before he can reach her, and the door is shut as Peter repeatedly bangs on it. In the real world, the others can hear Peter agonizing over the fact that Aunt May is finally gone. Even Madame Webb also senses that the connection is slowly fading. So, essentially, it's all over now, and Aunt May will not be coming back from the dead or surviving the coma. Up in her room, Eddie prepares himself to unplug Aunt May from her machine. Venom is right beside him, urging him on. But then Eddie pauses to think, and Venom is infuriated because really, there's nothing to think about. He says it's simple enough, and all Eddie has to do is switch the life support system off. And if he's feeling lucky, he can do something a little more drastic. But it seems Eddie is hearing a totally different voice other than that of Venom. And this separate voice is driving him crazy. So essentially, he's not going to do what Venom says, and you can see that he is being tortured up there. He says he needs to concentrate, but Venom is not letting him. Venom now admits that their relationship was never a partnership, but a dictatorship. He simply tells Eddie what to do, and Eddie must follow the commands whether he likes it or not. For a moment there, Eddie seems to have gotten his senses back, Was it something Venom said? Whatever the case, the look in Eddie's eyes afterwards seems like he gets the problem with him, and now he's resolved to do something about it. Peter and his friends downstairs begin to leave the room. Black Cat is making some comments to Anna Watson about how she owns quite a number of black suits for her hero identity. On his part, Peter seems a bit disappointed that he couldn't get Aunt May to come back with him. He thinks there's more to it, and tells Madame Web, who is being wheeled out on her wheelchair, that there may have been another force at play. By the way, Madame Web is permanently blindfolded. It's no wonder she was the perfect clairvoyant to help Peter communicate with Aunt May. As Peter racks his brain on what Aunt May was trying to pass across to him, his spider senses choose that moment in time to tingle. Peter hurriedly leaves the rest of them and rushes up to Aunt May's room. Upon getting there, he sees Eddie's knockoff mask lying around and then Eddie seated on the window sill. The glass behind him is broken, and a clean waft of breeze is pouring freely into the hospital room. However, it turns out Eddie didn't give in to Venom's temptations. Eddie reassures Peter that Aunt May is fine, but also tells him that Venom wanted her dead, and tried to use him to do it. Peter is somewhat confused because he doesn't connect the dots back to Venom. Eddie says he literally cut Venom out of himself and shows Peter his arms with all the multiple cuts. As Eddie stretches out his hands, he deliberately starts to fall through the open window. As he free falls on his way down, he asks for Peter's forgiveness in the hope that it will all be over for him by the time he hits the concrete. But then, Peter shoots some webbing his way. Next thing you know, Eddie wakes up in a hospital bed having apparently been saved by Peter. And the first voice Eddie hears is that of Venom still haunting him. At this point, Eddie gives up trying to fight off Venom and more or less embraces their partnership, or rather is it Venom's self-proclaimed dictatorship instead. The end.